Hey there guys, welcome to Dinos Vault and welcome to my first look walk-around review of the Honda X-Blade, the most promising bike to look forward to in the most happening segment, which is of course the 150 to 160cc segment in the motorcycle market here in India. Now while the Hornet 160R itself is a very impressive motorcycle in and of itself to compete with the likes of the Gixxer, the FZ, the Pulsar 160 NS etc., Honda are looking for a double onslaught or a two-fold attack against the opposition, because while the Hornet gets a refresh, Honda are also prepping this sharp, sleek and really mean looking weapon to wreak havoc in the 160cc segment once it is launched. And believe me, this has all the right ingredients to pose a serious threat to the existing segment leaders in the 150 to 160cc motorcycle segment. So what does the X-Blade have on offer? First, let's start out by looking at the engine specs. This bike comes powered by a 4-stroke single-cylinder air-cooled 162.71cc engine that puts out 13.93 bhp of max power at 8,500 rpm and 13.9 Newton meters of max torque at 6,000 rpm. This comes mated to a 5-speed gearbox. It'll be really interesting to see what kind of a ride feel this has on offer, but so far as the styling is concerned, this has to now be the sharpest and the meanest looking machine in the 160cc segment once it is launched. I don't know how many of you remember, but this one resembles the CX-1 concept even more closely when compared to the Hornet 160R. The sharp details, the sculpted styling and the futuristic looks would captivate the senses of the onlooker right from the very first glance. Now these bikes that were showcased at the Auto Expo did not get ABS, but I'm really hoping that Honda would introduce these bikes at least with optional ABS now that the Hornet 160R ABS variant has already been showcased. Now looking at the brakes, we get a 276mm pedal disc up front and 130mm drum brake at the back. Looking at the suspension, we get telescopic forks up front and a monoshock at the back. Talking about the wheels and tires, we get 17-inch wheels with a 80/100 tire up front and a 130/70 tire at the back. Ground clearance is 160mm, which I believe is more than sufficient. The bike comes with a maintenance-free battery, which has kind of become a regulation nowadays. The headlamp is a full LED unit that lends the bike a more futuristic and a far more aggressive front-end look. The tail lamp looks ultra sharp and super sexy as well. The chunky twin-port exhaust almost looks like a double-barrel gun. I really hope it sounds as good as it looks. The tank looks nice and muscular and prominent with sharp cuts and creases all over, typically that of a naked street fighter, and the overall fit and finish seems very impressive. Now let's just go ahead and see how different this is compared to the Hornet 160R, though this has been built based on the same underpinnings. The length of the X-Blade is down by 28mm compared to the Hornet, the width is up by 3mm and the overall height of the bike is up by 48mm. The wheelbase for the X-Blade is up by just 1mm, so I guess the bike would be just as much as easily flickable as the Hornet. Ground clearance is down by 4mm because the Hornet gets a higher ground clearance of 164mm. Nevertheless, 160mm is more than sufficient in my opinion. The Hornet gets a wider 140 section rear tire, but the X-Blade gets a 130 section rear tire. The front tire size is similar for both the bikes. Brakes are also similar for both the bikes, with both getting a 276mm pedal disc up front and 130mm drum brake at the back. The Hornet gets a 220mm optional rear disc, and hopefully the X-Blade would also get that at the time of its launch. In terms of power, the Hornet puts out 15 bhp of max power, whereas the X-Blade puts out 13.93 bhp. Torque-wise, again, the Hornet puts out 14.76 Newton meters of max torque compared to 13.9 Newton meters of the X-Blade. However, looks-wise, the X-Blade looks a lot more radical and sexy and modern compared to the Hornet. So these were the differences. Now coming to the one last surprise package that Honda have thrown in along with the X-Blade. Maybe this comes in light of the biking culture or the touring culture catching up with the masses at the rate of knots, with more and more individuals venturing out on their bikes to explore the world out there. So the good news for all you wannabe tourers is that Honda is offering an optional adventure kit along with the X-Blade at an extra cost. So this would include the taller transparent front windshield, as you can see here, which I believe would definitely do its part in fending off the wind blast while riding through the highways. Secondly, we also get this tail rack to mount a top case to store all the necessary stuff as you choose to venture out touring. The fork protectors and the engine cowl, from what I noticed, are also available on the standard variant, as you can see here. So that's pretty much it. Now this is a really interesting motorcycle that I personally am looking forward to reviewing once it is launched. The estimated pricing as per some online sources for the X-Blade is set to be below 79,000 rupees, which would make this bike a real steal if Honda manages to price it so aggressively. Well, that's pretty much it for now. I just hope you found this video useful. Until next time, this is Dino saying ciao. Take care, God bless, and ride safe.